So I was going to paint my face like a clown for this intro, but I realized that doing that, I look like a juggalo from the Insane Clown Posse, and that that just wasn't going to work. So we nixed that idea. But if the idea of me in clown makeup freaks you out, then you might be in for a bumpy ride today because today we're talking about clown movies at the horror movie syllabus. And if it freaks you out about me being a juggalo or something, that's a totally justifiable way to feel. Let's get into it. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Horror Movie Syllabus. My name is Professor Victor, and I'll be your host as we're going through all of the essential, noteworthy, interesting, and downright notorious modern horror films. If you're new, I recommend you check out our introduction video, link to that in the description below. It'll give you a good explanation of how the horror movie syllabus works. In short, though, we look at a particular subgenre of horror, and we talk about 3 movies from that subgenre. Today, we're talking about clowns. And clowns and horror have become somewhat ubiquitous over the last several years. And I'm not sure how that happened. Now, coulrophobia, the fear of clowns, is an actual thing. So it's not like suddenly clowns became scary. That's been true forever. But the idea of clowns as being scary as like the general consensus, rather than it being kind of an outlier phobia, is a relatively new idea for the last, I don't know, 20, 30 years. Um, and as a result has led to a tremendous amount of movies with a clown as an antagonist, which is great if you like clown movies, which I do, um, because there's a lot to choose from. Now, it's interesting to note that, coulrophobia, again, a real phobia that is really debilitating for people. But then there's also people that don't actually suffer from the phobia that just think clowns are downright creepy. And they are correct, because they are. Um, and I think that's what this subgenre caters to, are those people, the people that just find clowns generally creepy and unsettling. Because if you have coulrophobia, then frankly, these movies are tremendously terrifying and you probably can't even watch them. But if you just think clowns are creepy, like I do, then these are probably a pretty good fun ride. So again, made a light of it in the intro a little bit, but if you have coulrophobia, this is a tough one for you. So trigger warning, I guess. You probably wouldn't have even clicked on this video if you have coulrophobia. So I don't even know why I'm bothering with the trigger warning, but there you go. We are going to talk about clowns. We're going to talk about them being creepy. What makes them creepy? I'm not quite sure. I mean, the face paint, the weird painted on smiles, or the sad clown in particular is always kind of creepy. The goofy antics and tricks, the fact that they generally don't talk, or if they do, they talk in a really bizarre voice. I don't know. I'm not sure what it is that makes them creepy. I think it's just like spiders. They just are. They're just creepy. It's just like, some sort of base instinctual reaction that clowns are creepy. But they're. And as a result, makes for some wonderful antagonists and some wonderful films. We're going to talk about what I think are some of the best of those films today. And we've ranked them as we usually do in the order of undergraduate, graduate, and postgraduate levels. With this case, they're going to be in the level of how scary they are. Postgraduate being the scariest. So, without wasting any more time, let's go ahead and jump into these movies. The first movie we're talking about today, the undergraduate selection, is Killer Clowns from Outer Space. Killer Clowns from Outer Space came out in 1988 and is something of a cult classic that has endured over the years. It is well beloved by its fan base. If you're not familiar with it, the story is about a group of clown aliens that come to a small town and invade it and start taking over the town and kidnapping and well, taking people away. I don't want to spoil it too much, I guess, but suffice to say that the clowns are not there to entertain. They are there to conquer. And of course, we have protagonists that are trying to fight them off. And we'll leave it at that because, again, I don't want to spoil the movie. But the movie is, by and large, a silly movie. If we're being honest with you, if we're being honest, it's a silly movie, but it's a lot of fun. And when you think about clowns, that's what you should be thinking about, is fun, right? And this movie really nails that down. I would say that out of all the movies that we're going to talk about today, this one, more than any other movie, really nails down the clown motif. It really revels in using the different aspects of clowns and the circus in the movie as plot points, or really more like killing methods. The way that the clowns kill people are in a variety of ways tied to tricks or shticks that the clowns do in real life at the circus. And so that's, to me, one of the biggest assets of the movie. It's one of the things I like the most about it, is that it uses the clown motif to the fullest. The other thing I really like about this movie is the depictions of the clowns themselves. They are practical effects, they are makeup, and they are really, really good. The clown effects, or the clown makeup, the clown masks, are extremely creepy looking, really, really cool. They're both funny and unsettling at the same time. They're really kind of grotesque, and they're amazing. It's amazing work. And I think that is probably the number one reason why this movie has such a cult following, is the clowns look incredible. They look creepy and funny, cute and gross at the same time. And their portrayal is really great too. They really are clowns. I mean, they're killer clowns from outer space. It's the title of the movie. It's no surprise they're alien clowns because they're from outer space. But you're not thinking like a xenomorph style alien. You're thinking clowns when you see them. They are clowns, and it works really, really well. And I'm certain that design, that creature design, is the main reason why this movie is so cool. Now, I don't worship at the altar of this movie like so many of its fans do. It's a cult hit, and people absolutely revere this movie. I wouldn't go that far. I wouldn't call, I don't have reverence for it. I think it's a good time. I think it's fun. I understand why it has a cult following. I'm glad it has a cult following, and I definitely think it's a fun ride. I think it's worth your time to check out. But I don't subscribe to the classicness of it, because again, it's a campy movie. But it knows it's a campy movie. It's trying to be a campy movie, but it's hitting that sweet spot where movies that try to be campy oftentimes just fail and just wind up kind of being boring or lame. And then movies that are unintentionally campy wind up being fun, but they were trying to be earnest. This movie actually is trying to be campy and nailing it, and it works really well. That's not an easy thing to do. It's not easy to do camp intentionally. This movie does it, and it does it well. The movie has some pretty cheesy effects. I'm not going to lie to you. If you're coming to this movie for realism or some serious scares, you're going to leave disappointed. But if you're coming to this movie with the intent of having a good time, maybe laughing a little bit, maybe being a little skeeved out, there are some scenes in this movie that are a little bit creepy. I'm not going to lie to you. But overall, it's just a fun movie. And if you come in looking to have fun, you will have fun. I think that expectations are important when it comes to this movie. You go in with the right mindset, you're going to have a good time. I'm guessing a lot of you have seen this movie before, and I'd be curious to know your thoughts on it. I would like to know if you're like one of those diehard fans that worship the movie. If you think it's just the bee's knees, please by all means let us know in the comments how much you love that movie and why. Because I'd like to get that perspective. I think it's awesome. I think there are people that love this movie. I think it's awesome that they love it so much. I'm not judging that at all. Just because I don't love it doesn't mean I don't like it a lot, and I do. So if you're effusive about it, share that effusion with us. If you haven't seen it, check it out and let us know what you think, because again, I'd like to know what a fresh pair of eyes thinks of this movie coming into it. Is it just schlocky and cheesy, or is it fun? Did you find it creepy at all? Does the puppet scene creep you out? Because that creeps me out. That's the one scene that creeps me out, and I won't spoil it other than to say it's a puppet scene. But it creeps me out a little bit. So let us know what you think of this movie if you haven't seen it and you do check it out, because I'd be curious to hear your thoughts as well. But I would say Killer Clowns from Outer Space. It's a good time if you'll give it a chance. So not a bad way to spend your time. The next movie that we're talking about today, the graduate level selection, is It. And specifically, we're talking about It Chapter 1 that came out in 2017 and is based on the Stephen King novel It. If you're not familiar with the novel or the movie, The movie takes place in a small town called Derry in New England, and it's about a group of kids, kind of outcast kids, who are struggling with the fact that a bunch of kids go missing every so often in the town. It turns out they're being terrorized by an evil clown. And to say anything more than that probably starts to get into spoiler territory. So let's go ahead and stop it there, other than to say it's definitely something you should check out because if you haven't seen it, because it's really, really good. Now, as I said, the movie is based on the 1986 novel It by Stephen King. We've talked a lot about Stephen King on this channel in the past, and we'll talk about him quite a bit in the future. He's a prolific writer who makes a lot of books that get turned into movies. This is one of his better books for me. I read this book when it came out in 1986, I think it was, and loved it. Even though it suffers from what a lot of Stephen King novels suffer from, which is not the best ending. King is notorious for not sticking the landing when it comes to his books. And in this case, it's particularly noteworthy because it has an impact on the movie. Now, the 2017 It Chapter 1 is not the first adaptation of the King novel. There was one in 1990 that was done for TV. It was a 4-hour TV miniseries. It starred Tim Curry as Pennywise the Clown. That's the name of the clown in the story. And Tim Curry is great in that miniseries, but a lot of people love that miniseries that are younger than me. And I think it's because if you saw it at a young age, it scared you and you have that nostalgia factor that we've talked about in the past. I don't love that miniseries. I like Tim Curry in it very much, but the miniseries itself, it's okay. It's a made-for-TV Stephen King movie, so, you know, it is what it is. This movie really nails it. It really is scary. In this case, Bill Skarsgård is playing Pennywise the Clown, and he's phenomenal in this movie. And then all of the kids playing what they call the Losers Club, this group of outcast kids, are fantastic. Includes Finn Wolfhard from Stranger Things, Jane Martell, who's in Knives Out. I'm blanking on the name of the girl that plays Beverly, Sophia something. She's phenomenal. She's going to be a star. The cast of kids is phenomenal. The casting across the board in this movie, excellent. And it's a big part of what makes the movie so good. The other part of it is it's just really well directed. It's really well made. It really captures the creepiness of the book. It's not 100% true to the book. They've updated it to modern times to make it make a little bit more sense. But that update works really, really well. And by modern times, I mean that the story takes place in the 80s rather than in the 50s. And the reason why that's noteworthy is because the book, It, actually takes place in two different time periods, in the 50s and then in the 80s. And in the movies, they've slid it from the 80s and current times. And that time gap of the two different eras is important to the narrative. I won't say why because I don't want to spoil the movie, but the fact that it takes place in two different time periods, both when the kids are young and when they're grown-ups, is important to the story. So the book goes back and forth between those two different time periods, and both versions of the movie, both the TV version and the current version, the modern version, separate those two time periods out into two distinct movies. Or in the miniseries, the first half was with the kids, and then the second half was with the adults. And in this case, It Chapter 1 is with the kids, and It Chapter 2 is with the adults. In both cases, this is probably a misstep because the stuff with the adults is nowhere near as good or as interesting or as scary as the stuff with the kids. It's just not. It's just not. Now, in the book, that doesn't matter as much because you're constantly going back and forth. It's like told in a series of flashbacks. So you're kind of going back and forth. So you're always getting some of the kid's story throughout the entire novel, which is an incredibly long novel. It's like 1,000 pages or 1,200 pages or something like that. But you've got the kid's storyline all the way throughout, and it keeps you invested. By separating those into two distinct eras, and in the case of It Chapter 1 and It Chapter 2, which is the sequel, two distinct movies, the second part gets really, it's inferior. In comparison to the first one, it's really disappointing. You see it in the miniseries. The first half of the miniseries in 1990 is far superior to the second half. And in this case, It Chapter 1 is far superior to It Chapter 2, which is why Chapter 1 made it to the syllabus. Chapter 2, it's just the sequel. You have to see it to finish the story, sure, but the first part is so much better than the second part. And this is almost a universal opinion. Very few people think that the adult version of the adult part of the story is better than the kids part, because it's not. Um, and chapter two is a well-made movie, same director, new cast with adults. And the adult cast is fantastic, including Jessica Chastain, who I'm a big fan of. Bill Hader. It's got a great cast. James McAvoy, but it doesn't matter because the source material, the story for the adults, is just inferior to that of the kids, and it's unfortunate, but it's true. The kids' story is great, in part because it really taps into not the nostalgia of being that time period, because again, you may not have even grown up in that time period, but it does tap in the nostalgia of being a kid, being bullied and picked on, finding those friends that you connect with, that solidarity amongst friendship, dealing with things that are more adult that you shouldn't have to deal with. It captures all of that in a really wonderful way. As a drama, this movie would work because it's got the kid stuff down pat, but the clown is really scary. Pennywise the clown is an iconic horror villain for good reason. Tim Curry's version is fantastic. It's by far the best thing about that miniseries, but the version that Bill Skarsgård does here is fantastic. It's all in his eyes. His eyes in this movie are incredible. Now, the special effects, the makeup, and everything like that are on point too. The movie looks good. The special effects are by and large very good, and I think they'll age pretty well. At least I hope they do, because there's some CGI and stuff in there too. But it's a very well made movie, and it adds to the creepiness of it quite a bit. It's pretty scary. Bill Skarsgård's performance is scary. The way the kids react to him just reinforces that scariness. The effects are there to support it. It's a fantastic performance, and it winds up making for a fantastic movie. It Chapter 1 was a huge hit for good reason. If you're scared of clowns, Pennywise will scare the hell out of you. It's a great character, and it's done really well. It's realized very well in here. The scary scenes in this movie work extremely well. The drama works really well. It's an excellent film. It is very unfortunate that the second part does not live up to the first part, but it was doomed from the get-go. As soon as I saw the first movie, I realized the second movie was going to be focused on the adults. I knew it would be a problem because it's a problem in the book. But it doesn't mean you shouldn't check it out. For sure, the first movie is fantastic, and you'll have to see again. You have to see the second movie just to finish it out. And the second movie is not terrible. It's not bad. It's just in comparison to an excellent first part, it feels like a letdown. So I'm just kind of bracing you for that. If you haven't checked this out, check out both parts, but definitely Chapter 1 is where it's at. Chapter 1 is where the really good stuff is. Chapter 2 won't be quite as good, and that's unfortunate, but it's not a waste of your time to watch Chapter 2. I think you'll still enjoy it. The story, if nothing else, will keep you engaged, so that you can figure out, the ending and how it all wraps up. But definitely, if you haven't, check out the first one. It's one of the scariest clowns you'll ever see on film. And give Tim Curry a chance too. If you really like clown stuff and you haven't seen the miniseries, at least check out the first part of that, because Tim Curry's Pennywise is fantastic. So, and of course, if you have thoughts on Pennywise, you have thoughts on it, share them in the comments below. I'd love to hear them. But I definitely would like you to check it out if you haven't. In our last selection today, the postgraduate selection is Terrifier. Terrifier came out in 2016 and is deeply unsettling. It is very gory, very graphic, a really unsettling film. If you haven't seen the movie, it's pretty simplistic. It's a couple of girls that are out. I think it's on Halloween, and they come across Art the Clown, a guy in a clown costume who is wildly creepy, just incredibly creepy guy. And he's kind of interacting with them and stuff like that, and then things take a turn for the worse, and we'll leave it at that, because as usual, I don't want to spoil anything for you. But suffice to say, Art the Clown, he ain't funny. Art the Clown is such a great design. I just raved about Pennywise, and I stand by that. Pennywise is incredible, but Art the Clown might be the scariest clown I've ever seen on film, or ever hope to see. He just looks creepy. Like, he just looks scary. Like, it's hard to say it any other way. Like nothing about him screams nice or alluring or kid friendly or anything like that. He just looks evil and scary. And you know, if you see the image of him right there, like what the hell? Like that's just really scary. And the movie lives up to this. Like the movie essentially winds up being your standard slasher film, but just with what is poised to be an iconic slasher villain. Art the Clown first originates in an anthology movie called All Hallows Eve. And he gets his own movie here in Terrifier. And from what I understand, they are making a sequel to Terrifier, which would be interesting. So Art the Clown, poised to be maybe the next great slasher icon because he is that creepy. The slasher film that follows from Terrifier is top notch. Even if Art the Clown was just a regular mask killer, this movie would probably still be memorable because the kills are incredibly graphic. There's a kill in particular where a woman is bisected with a hacksaw, lengthwise. That is so disturbing and will sit with you. My jaw hit the floor, and I'm not easily shook, but I did not expect this. I threw this movie, I was like Netflix, I think, and I threw it on just randomly, like, oh, this looks creepy. That clown looks really creepy. I put it on, and I was just blown away by just how graphic and gory and unsettling and disturbing this movie is. It's really, really upsetting. Like I said, any mass killer doing these kind of gory kills would have been noteworthy enough. But Art the Clown in his clown outfit with his clown makeup and the way he moves takes it up so many notches, cranks it up to 11. The creep factor just goes through the roof on this. Art the Clown just really sells the creepiness of this movie. Some of the things he does in this movie, some of the ways, like I said, the way he moves, or some of the things he does, some of the jump scares and stuff in this movie are just demented, depraved. I don't know if I go so far to say or go into the extreme horror subgenre that we talked about recently, but maybe it's pretty extreme and it's really gruesome. But I loved it. It's a wild ride. I loved this movie, in part because, again, I was not prepared. I was not expecting it to be this shocking and graphic and gory and unsettling and scary, and it was. And that was a real thrill for me, a real treat. And partly just because I love slasher movies, and this one was a really good one. So I really enjoyed this ride. I thought it was a blast. Ain't gonna be for everybody. Of course, if you're really genuinely scared of clowns, this is not the movie for you, for sure. You can tell just by looking at the cover, not gonna be for you. But even if you're, you just kind of think clowns are creepy, this movie's a rough ride. I'm not gonna lie to you. It is kind of like, like an extreme horror movie. These kills are extremely graphic, disturbing. Some of the imagery in this movie, that are not even the kills, some of the imagery, really disturbing in this movie. So be aware before checking it out. Give if you're sensitive to these things, maybe give it a pass or do some research into what's going to be in it. But if you haven't seen it and you think you're up for it, Terrifier is quite the ride, and I highly recommend it for those of you that like a good slasher movie, like some serious gore and like creepy clowns. Terrifier will be the one that will not disappoint you. So those are my three selections for the best that the clown subgenre has to offer, and I stand by it. I love all those movies. I think they're great. But we've got a few extra credit movies to talk about too, in case you just haven't gotten enough of your clowns yet. The first movie that we're going to talk about is called Clown, and it came out, I think, 2014. And the story of the clown is pretty interesting. It's a guy whose kid loves clowns, and so he finds this old clown costume in a house that he's trying to sell, and he puts it on so that he can go and be a clown at his kid's birthday party, and it all works out great, and he's a hero. But the clown costume won't come off, and he's stuck being a clown, and slowly gets more and more clownish. And we'll stop there. I don't want to spoil it for you because this was a pretty original clown movie from my perspective. I hadn't seen anything like this before. It felt like a fresh take on the clown subgenre. It's produced by Eli Roth, although he didn't direct it. But it's well directed. It's not like a work of art or anything like that. It almost feels more like an episode of Creep Show or something like that. But it does hold itself through the rather short running time. It's only like 80 some odd minutes, I think. And it holds its own. There's enough story there to get by. But this is an interesting idea. Somebody who is a regular person who gets stuck in a clown costume and it starts turning him into a clown, and not one of the good clowns, obviously. Um, really fascinating movie. And it's got some guts on it. Like it's not afraid to put kids in peril. It's not afraid to kill some kids. So be aware of that. It's not pulling punches. It's a dark movie. It's not like Terrifier in terms of how gory and graphic it is or scary it is, but it's pretty unsettling. Some of the things that happen in there. There's some, like I said, if you have a problem with kids getting killed, this movie might be a rough one for you. But it's an interesting idea. It's a fresh take. I really liked the idea of somebody being trapped in this costume. It's kind of a haunted costume thing. I mean, I could have put this in the haunted objects subgenre if I wanted to, but I mean, it's called Clown. It's about a clown, and it's got a fresh take on what a clown actually is. And that's what I like. But again, I don't want to spoil anything, but that's what I like about this movie. It's definitely worth a watch, and it's not a huge hit or anything like that. So it's a good chance a lot of you haven't seen it. And if you haven't, check it out. Let me know what you think about it, because I was pleasantly surprised at how much I liked this movie. And if you like clown stuff, I think you'll like it too. The next movie we're going to talk about is called Killjoy. And Killjoy is a movie by Full Moon, and we'll talk about them in just a second. But if you're not familiar with the movie, the story is about a young man who tries to call upon the spirit of an evil clown named Killjoy to help him with bullies that are bothering him. And then the boy actually winds up getting killed by the bullies, and Killjoy comes to exact revenge, which sounds like a fairly trite storyline, and to be honest, it actually is. But what makes this movie interesting is a couple of things. One is that it's made by Full Moon Pictures, which is a movie studio that's known for schlockier movies. We haven't really talked about Full Moon much on the channel, but I think we'll talk about them more in the future. In fact, I know for a fact we will. But they typically make some schlocky movies, and this is no exception to it. Killjoy is kind of a schlocky movie. They're very low budget movies, and Killjoy is a very low budget movie. It looks somewhat amateurish in how it's shot. It's something that I wouldn't go so far as to call it like a do it yourself or micro budget type movie, but close. It's still made competently. It's just not very stylish, and it's shot on video. It looks low budget. And the acting is not great for the most part. But what is interesting about it, another thing that makes the movie stand out to me, is that it's an all black cast. And I talked recently about blaxploitation horror movies, and I guess this could have gone in there, but it didn't really feel like blaxploitation so much as it felt like a clown movie, because blaxploitation has its own set of tropes about the man and stuff like that that wasn't really included in this movie. What really was included in this movie was a scary clown, and that's the third thing that really makes this movie noteworthy to me is the clown Killjoy. The acting across the board in this movie is bad, except for the guy playing Killjoy. Killjoy is awesome. Now, his clown design is pretty good. It's not as creepy as, say, Art the Clown or even Pennywise, but it's pretty good. But really what's great is the performance. Killjoy the Clown is kind of almost on par with Freddy Krueger in terms of how funny he is. Like, not all of his one-liners work necessarily. Some of them are pretty groan-worthy, or but he's got personality. He's funny. He's got a twinkle in his eye. He's got a little bit of sass to him. He's got a similar vibe to Freddy in terms of like that comedy filled with menace. Now, the downside is he's not as menacing as Freddy. They don't have the budget for it. Frankly, they don't have the talent to make him as scary as Freddy could be. But he's fun to watch. Every time Killjoy's on screen, I was having a good time. Unfortunately, when he's not on screen, the movie can be a little bit of a slog. Like I said, the acting's kind of bad. The drama between the characters is not all that interesting. The story's pretty rote. But once Killjoy shows up, it's great. And this might help explain why there's been a series of movies. There's a whole franchise of Killjoy movies. And I think it's because of the popularity of Killjoy, the character, because it sure isn't about the story. Like I said, the movie would be forgettable, but for Killjoy. Killjoy is a great character, and apparently I'm not the only one who thinks so, because they keep making movies. I think they're up to 4 or 5 now. I haven't seen all of them. And the characters got enough popularity to keep making. Now these are again low budget, straight to video things, so it's not like it takes a lot to get those movies out there. But there's a market for them. There's people who enjoy it, and Killjoy the character is good. I kind of wish that he could be used in a better production, to be honest with you, because I think he could be a bigger star if the quality of the movies around him were better. But if you haven't seen Killjoy, yeah, maybe check it out. Again, manage your expectations. It's not a great film, but or at least check out his scenes because Killjoy is a blast. And if you really like clown movies, you'd probably like Killjoy. The last extra credit movie I'm going to mention today is a movie called Clown House. And Clown House is a little bit of a difficult one to talk about, but we're going to go ahead and take a stab at it anyways. If you're not familiar with Clown House, the story in short is about a boy who suffers from coulrophobia, and his brothers take him to the circus inexplicably to confront his fears. I guess, I don't know. Anyways, he freaks out about the clowns, but at the same time, 3 mental patients have escaped the asylum and have taken over these clown costumes and are now terrorizing the boys in their home dressed as clowns. And we'll just leave it at that in terms of plot in case for some reason you want to watch this movie. But the reason we're talking about this movie, the reason why I wanted to bring it up is not because of the movie itself. The movie itself is fine. It's actually well directed. More on that in a second. And it's a fine story. It's not a bad story. It works pretty good. It's good. It's good. It's fine. It's not going to change your life, but it's a good movie. It hold your attention. It's fun. The reason why we're talking about it, though, is the notoriety about the movie. It's a notorious film and has nothing to do with the movie itself, but rather the production. See, Clown House was directed by a man named Victor Salva. And we've talked about him briefly when we talked about Jeepers Creepers earlier in the syllabus. Victor Salva is a convicted child molester. Not alleged, convicted. He went to jail for molesting children. And yet he still directs movies. That is what it is. But Clown House is not only directed by Victor Salva, convicted child molester, it stars the boy that he molested. He molested the boy during the production of this movie. And as a result, this movie has been, I guess, canceled, really. You can't really find it anywhere on streaming. It's not commercially available anymore. They yanked the DVDs off the shelves when the stuff came to light. And so if you have an actual burned DVD copy of this, a factory-made DVD copy of this, that's very, very valuable. I saw it in a bootleg version, and I think that's probably the only way to see the movie at this point. And it's a tough one because, like I said, the movie's good. And it's got some good performance in there. Most noteworthy, the first theatrical performance of Sam Rockwell, Academy Award winner Sam Rockwell, who's an amazing actor, somebody I really like. This is his first performance, and he's quite good in the movie. But again, like, this movie is kind of hard to see. They've kind of locked it away, and it's tough because I kind of understand why. My opinion on these kind of things is when somebody's a bad actor, when somebody does something bad, let's take Roman Polanski, for example. I can always separate the art from the artist because, especially when it comes to movies, they're not the only ones. Like Polanski made, for example, Rosemary's Baby, but he's not the only one who made that. Mia Farrow's in that movie. A lot of people were in that movie, and a lot of people were behind the camera making that movie. So it's a collaborative work of a bunch of people, and I don't think those people's hard work should be locked away or shunned because one person screwed it up for everybody. I don't feel that way. But this one's a little bit different because this is the one where the kid was being molested during the making of this movie. This movie is what led to him being molested. So this one's a hard one to say, yeah, this movie should be seen because Sam Rockwell's in it, all these people did work on it. It's harder to say that for this one. It's also harder to watch. Like I said, the movie in a vacuum, it's a good movie. And it's well directed. I can see why people wanted to keep giving Victor Salva work because he's a good director. He's got an eye. But when you know what he is and what he does or has done, you see the movie in a different light. There's way too many scenes of these young boys like in their underwear or in the bathtub or wrestling around and stuff like that. And you see this in other movies too, like Jeepers Creepers 2 in particular. that when you know who he is, it might have seemed like an innocent scene, but it no longer seems innocent. It makes your skin crawl. It's really, really disturbing in all the wrong ways. It's not creepy, fun horror stuff. It's creepy, gross pedophile stuff. And it's really, really upsetting. So I'm not really recommending Clown House to you, even though, like I said, it's a decent movie. I'm just letting you know, because you probably didn't know about the controversy of Victor Salva, in particular this movie. Like I said, this movie's kind of been canceled away, locked away, and that's fine. Its merits, Sam Rockwell aside, its merits don't outweigh the tragedy and awfulness that permeates the movie, and it's not a fun watch because of that alone. And if you watch this, you'll be infuriated that Victor Salva continued to work, and I might still be working this day. I don't know. Jeepers Creepers 3, there was some controversy about that, and I think he might be done now because with the Me Too era and everything like that, and cancel culture, I think he's probably finally done, but he should have been done years ago. And he did very little time for his crime. And if you want more details on Victor Salva, look them up, I suppose. But suffice to say, like, he's an outraging, infuriating person in horror who, yes, is talented. I'm not going to deny he has talent, but who cares? The guy's gross. And I just wanted to, I guess, let you guys know about this, the notoriety of it, because we do talk about notorious films. This is one that I'm not recommending you watch. Again, nothing in the movie's content in particular in a vacuum is all that unsettling, but when you know the backstory about it, it becomes very unsettling. You know what the poor kid had to go through. It becomes very unsettling, becomes a very unpleasant watch. So not really recommending it for you. I just wanted you guys to know, for your education, for your awareness, be aware of the movie Clown House. If you do see it, I mean, I watched it. I'm not judging anybody who watches it. I'm just saying there's no real reason to. But I did watch it. So if you do see it, or if you have seen it and you have thoughts on this, let me know what you think. If you have thoughts on, Victor Salva, let's have an adult conversation about that in the comments. Let's be, mindful and sensitive to people. It's a pretty touchy subject matter, but we can talk about that in the comments down below. But I felt like I didn't want to shy away from that controversy. I didn't want to, if we're gonna talk about clown movies, not talking about Clown House almost empowers or silences victims or something like that. And I didn't want to do that. I wanted to confront it. I wanted to say, hey, this is here. This is what happened. It's pretty gross, but I want you guys to be aware of it. So that's my public service for the day. Sorry to bring this this fun subgenre down on a sour note at the end there. Not cool, I admit. But we did talk about a lot of awesome movies today. Again, if you haven't seen it, if you haven't seen Terrifier, if you haven't seen Killer Clowns, check these movies out because they are a blast. You'll have fun with them if you enjoy clowns. And if you don't enjoy clowns, like I said, what are you even watching this for? It's maybe not your bag at all. But regardless of whether you like clowns, hate clowns, are afraid of clowns, or think clowns are downright stupid, I appreciate you taking some time to explore them with me today. I enjoy these movies. I think they're a lot of fun. There's a lot of other ones that we could have talked about. There's other ones that might be popping up in other places on the syllabus. And if you can think of other ones that we didn't talk about that should have been discussed, leave those in the comments below. I love seeing other suggestions, and so do some of the other viewers. So please, by all means, offer up some recommendations for us because we are all benefiting by your suggestions. With that, thank you guys again for spending the time with me. I appreciate you guys very, very much. Until next time, class dismissed.